Hello and welcome to another episode of the House Life podcast, where we talk about myself. Yeah, just myself. So just to let you know, I might sound a little bit different because I've been experimenting with what time I should record this podcast. The first episode I recorded it at 12 a.m., second episode at 4 p.m., and this episode at 11 a.m. The time difference is very drastic, but I guess I'm more awake in the morning. I don't really do stuff in the morning because I'm very unproductive in the morning anyways, so this can be a good start to making me more productive. So, let's move into the very first segment, How's Life? This week I have been pretty unproductive because I feel like the 10,000 problems that I have faced in my CCA are slowly getting solved. So my workload is slowly going down. And because of that, I feel like I'm doing lesser. Even though I know that there's still a lot to be done, I'm still doing lesser because I do want to take a break. Obviously I have been very tired and I really want to just relax. So this week was kind of good for me. This week I got to actually take some time off and just spend some time with myself. Play some games, watch shows. Speaking of shows, I actually wanted to watch the Winter Soldier and the Falcon something. Like I want to watch everything at once because I hate having to wait for the next episode. That's why I like to watch stuff like after everything is released. Netflix kind of does that and they just release everything at once usually. That's what I like about it. But I don't own a Netflix account because I don't want to pay more money when I can just get the stuff online. In my own ways. May or may not be going to pirated websites, but we do what we do to get what we want, yeah? So I do want to actually try to be more productive next week because I know that there's a lot of stuff to do, but I can't push myself to do it. Procrastination obviously, but I do want to try and make myself do productive stuff. Usually my productive hours are like 2 or 3 all the way till nighttime, and I get less productive at around 12 a.m., 1 a.m. That's when my brain starts to slowly shut off, and that's when my creative juices come out for no apparent reason, because I usually want to do my podcast at night because I feel like that's when my thoughts actually kind of flow and I'm able to think about stuff. So I couldn't do that this time because I do want to sleep a little bit earlier. So the whole process is like this, okay? If I record at, let's say, 11 a.m., I will usually end the recording at about 12 p.m. Then I will edit the audio at about maybe 11 p.m. or 12 a.m. And once I finish editing the audio, it will be about like 2 hours later. So when I edit the audio, I will usually just shorten the entire podcast episode because sometimes I say the wrong things and then I repeat it so that I can just get that clean take. I don't have to randomly cut and paste. So what I will do is usually just remove the bad parts, remove the boring parts. If I don't have enough content, obviously I can't remove the boring part. If you see last week's episode, it is actually 26 minutes long. Usually the episodes last 30 minutes. The reason why it was 26 minutes long is because I had to redo that episode because I used the wrong mic to record. It was very weird saying the same thing again because the thoughts now don't really flow. Like I already know what I'm going to say and it's a bit weird because I don't know what to add onto it. So I have to find a way to, try to make it interesting even though I know what I'm going to say already. That is it for the first segment. Now let's move on to the second segment, which is just random topics. So let's start with the first topic. We're starting off quite big. There have been recent accidents on the road, of people losing their lives because of a car accident, because of some negligence, getting into an accident because they weren't paying attention on the road. So an example is, if you remember, the car that was speeding on the road going straight into like the shop house, and I think like 4 people in it died. Don't quote me on that, I'm not very sure. Another incident that was kind of recent was this girl who was using her phone crossing the road. It was not at a traffic light, and a taxi actually hit her because she wasn't really paying attention. And in these like videos that you see on Instagram, usually in the comments it's quite toxic, because they talk about how, oh my god, these people deserve to die, or these people deserve to get hit. Why you never hit that person harder? Wow, why you never kill that person? Like it's very toxic, because number one, for example, in that car crash quite a while ago, they lost their lives. Yes, they might have done something dumb to lose their lives, but I don't think that it warrants you cursing them. You can feel that, hey, I guess you kind of did this and that was the consequence lah. But can you imagine their family members, their loved ones, how they feel when they lose these people? Can you put yourself in their shoes and imagine the entire internet ridiculing like your son, or ridiculing your brother, your partner, when they are dead? Like, I get that maybe you don't really agree with what they did. I mean, I don't really agree with everything that they did, but I don't think it's necessary to be that toxic, especially because these people already lost their lives and you still want to harp on it. I think it's very insensitive lah. But that's just my thoughts. It's quite a short topic, but I just want to get it out there, I guess. Another topic, shade. I just wrote shade because this is a topic recommended by another listener of the podcast, my friend, and I just want to talk about shade. Shading people and being shaded by people. Is that the right term? Basically, I have been through a lot of shade, especially in the recent few months. Well, I don't think I should say this, but I mean, the deed's already out there. People who notice it already noticed it. But I was recently out of a relationship, and it wasn't a good ending. It ended on quite a sour note, and a lot of bad things have come out of it. So I am usually the person shading other people. I'm usually the one like... So in my previous quote-unquote relationship, or not so relationship, I was the one shading other people. I mean, that was a huge like asshole move. Like, I completely see it in hindsight. I completely see how shading people doesn't really help the situation, and it was very, very toxic. And I completely see it now, and I just regret my decision. I'm still friends with that person that I was in the quote-unquote relationship with. It's not a relationship. It's just like a friendship, that a little bit more than a friendship. So I learned a lot from that. And when I went into my official first relationship, I was very mindful of my behavior. I was very mindful of my words. I want to make sure that I don't hurt people unnecessarily. That is kind of like my objective lah. So I try my best to appease other people and do what they want me to do. And it got to a point that, I mean, I didn't really feel like I was myself at all, because I had to change a lot of my behaviors to fit that person. And I didn't see that as a problem initially, because I'm like, okay, I mean, we want to change ourselves to be a better person for person that we love. So I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll change. And I mean, after a while, I kind of realized that maybe maybe this isn't right. Am I supposed to be this controlled? Like everything I do and say have to be like super controlled. In my previous friendship, I was very stubborn. I was very controlling, kind of. And I definitely did not want to do that again in this relationship. Like, I know how bad it is. But the thing is, all of those weren't a problem in this relationship. We had a lot of other problems that I don't really want to dive into. But just speaking about shade. Okay, we wanted to talk about shade. So, the relationship ended because I cared for her mental health, but she didn't. So, I mean, I don't really regret saying that, hey, maybe we should take a little break. It was just like a suggestion and I wanted to hear her thoughts, but she didn't want to tell me her thoughts and she just ended it just like that. So I have no say in trying to make the relationship work again. And in hindsight, I do realize that maybe that was probably the right move. I feel like we weren't that compatible in the first place, and seeing how she handled this whole situation proves that we weren't really meant to be. How so? Well, she was shading me a lot on like her IG story. Okay, my previous friendship ended quite peacefully. I guess that we kind of became friends again lah. And I thought that this could happen. You know, I was very patient with and understanding with, I give her space to deal with it. But, we still have to do stuff lah. And this is all my perspective. Just a reminder, this is all my perspective. She might have a different perspective to this story, but I mean, if she doesn't want to tell me, I can't do anything about it. So I still follow her on her IG page, and she still follows me on my IG page. And I thought that, okay lah, maybe we just continue, we'll just see where this goes. I don't think we're gonna get back together, but maybe we could still be friends after this whole thing, after she settled down and stuff. And I see her IG story a lot of the times shading me, like, I mean indirectly lah, but I know that it's directed to me. She loves poems, and she likes to use these poems to attack me, in a sense that she will say like, I was better off without you. Thank you for making me believe in love for a second. It's like, so when I read it and I digest it and I interpret it, it triggers me a lot. Like, it really triggered me a lot. And she's just shading me lah. She's just shading me that all of these poems are just shading me. And a lot of the times, I keep it in. I keep it in because I know, okay, maybe this might have been my mistake. Maybe I could have done more to save it. But after she kept doing it over and over and over, there was once that I burst lah. I burst. And I went and found like poems on my own. I went and looked at like those breakup poems and I posted in my IG story. I had to retaliate. I had to like defend myself, I feel so accused of doing something that I didn't do. I mean, in her eyes, I did it, but in my own eyes, I didn't lah. And it's quite annoying, I guess, because I know what she has been through before. I know what she has been through in her previous breakup, and I 100% don't want this to be a reenactment of that, because I knew that she had a very bad experience. And the problem is, she didn't make it easy for me to do that. She made it hard for me to do that by constantly attacking me. And how am I supposed to just ignore that? Like, at some point, it's going to affect me to a point that I can't take it anymore, right? Did she think that I have no emotions? Did she think that I was not invested in this? Like, what was she thinking? She also did a lot of other stuff that I am not going to dive into. But in hindsight, I don't regret breaking up, because I know that this whole thing could have been peaceful, but she chose not to be peaceful about it. So what can I do? I shade her back . it got to a point that we kept shading each other. She would post a story that really triggered me, and I would post another story back. And there was once that I was very angry that she posted these poems once. I just wrote in my story like, oh my god, I'm so angry. Like, I'm so pissed. I just said like, oh, I'm very angry. I could punch a wall right now. And then she posted on the story like a PSA, basically saying you don't get to I don't know, critique like how I deal with the breakup when you were the one who caused it. Basically, that's what it was saying. And I was like, I was holding it in. I posted another story. I was like, PSA alert announcement. Then I decorated a lot. And then I just say like, I basically defended myself lah. Okay. And after a while I realized, okay, maybe I might have stepped over the line. So I deleted my stories. I don't think she saw it, but I was pissed. I was really pissed. I was kind enough to let her attack me constantly without retaliating, but she just didn't want to stop. What can I do about that? And this is all just, again, my view, my perspective. I do talk with other people, and these people, I made a point to make sure that these people's relationship with her or friendship with her doesn't get affected by this. I make sure that to tell them that they shouldn't treat her differently just because of this, just because of what I'm telling you. And they didn't treat her differently, but she took it as me ganging up with other people and attacking her, and that's what she took it as. I don't know how, I don't know why, but that's what she took it as. So we went from shading all the way to my entire relationship. Not really entire, just a brief touch on like the surface. I don't want to go deep into it because she also did basically say that I attack her with her friends, even though like they aren't very close or what. She just assumed that I wanted to gang up and attack on her lah. Attack on Titan? Question mark. But I don't really want to go too deep into it, and I do realize that maybe I shouldn't have told these friends, but I feel like I deserve to talk to other people about it as well. She might have her own emotional support system, but I have a different emotional support system. So let's move on to the final segment of this episode. Let's talk. So the question today is, would you want to know you're going to die beforehand or die suddenly without warning? I feel like death is a very touchy subject, especially for me, because my grandmother just passed away last year, and I had quite a bit of a tough time dealing with it, dealing with like regrets, dealing with my emotions. And the thing is that we knew that she was going to pass away soon, very soon, because we did a whole diagnosis, and it was like, I think a few years ago, and she already had like stage 4 cancer. So we knew that it was going to happen, we just didn't know when. Now, if we didn't know, number one, I would not have spent more time with her. I would not have tried to talk with her more. I live right below her, like her flat is right above mine, and we barely talk because I'm just like really busy, and I never really like spend time and talk with her and interact with her. So I mean, that was one of my regrets lah. I didn't do enough. I didn't do even more. So I can't imagine if I actually didn't know that she was going to die. How would I have felt? How sudden would it be? I have experienced this before. I mean, I did lose my grandfather when I was like primary 5, and he died without any warning. Like, I didn't know that he was going to die at all, and it was quite sudden. Even though I was young, I couldn't exactly comprehend it. I couldn't take in what was happening and what this meant. I just remember in the morning, my parents came into my room, woke up and told me, "Hey, your grandfather just died we need to go to the funeral now. And it was quite, I don't know, jarring. And I didn't know how to feel. I never cried. I didn't know how to feel. I just didn't know how to feel. Because I never really experienced this before. Like losing my grandfather, it was the first time I actually lost someone that I was somewhat close to. We usually visit him in like the nursing home every Sunday, and it was a bit sudden lah. It was a bit sudden. So relating it back, I mean, I might as well just tell the whole story about how my grandmother died. Not really how, but when. So it was 15th of June, 2020. It was at night, and I was playing my games lah with my friends, and my parents usually just go and visit my grandmother, who is right above us, quite often, like maybe once every few days. And I thought this time was no different, so they went up. I mean, I just continued playing my game lah. Usually when I go up, it's just to like pass her stuff or talk to her. So they went up, and after like an hour or so, they came down and told me that, hey, basically the heart rate was very high, so we decided to send her to the hospital. So I didn't think that this was very serious. In the back of my mind, I kind of had a bad feeling about it. I actually wanted to wait for them to come back lah. They said that they were gonna come back at about 12:45 a.m. So I usually sleep like 1-2 a.m. and I wanted to wait for them lah, but I didn't want to expose that I slept that late. So the only day that I slept early, 12:45 a.m. They haven't come back home yet. So I was like, are y'all reaching? Then they were like, we're on the taxi already, we're coming back home soon. And I was like, okay lah. I at least felt a sense of relief lah, that nothing major happened, that they can come back home. So I went to sleep. This is while I was sleeping. My phone received a message at around like 1:20 that she was in a critical condition. They were going back to the hospital. Then at around 2 o'clock, they said that, she is in a very, very critical condition, and we need to go and see her tomorrow morning. So the next morning lah. And we were like, I wasn't awake. I don't have a ringtone. I don't have like notifications on, like ding. I just had no sound, no vibration, because I didn't want notifications to disturb me. And I kind of regretted it, mainly because if I had turned on my notifications, if I turned on vibration even, I would have known that she was critically ill. I would have known, and I would have like just went and see her, even if it was 2 a.m. I would have went. And I kind of hate myself for not being awake at that time, for not seeing her for the last time before she died. Because all of my relatives, like the teenagers, they did get to see her because they were awake. Another thing to note was that my phone was actually dead. The battery was gone, and I could not actually get like calls out on my phone. And even if my phone had battery, it would have been on mute. And my house phone is actually outside. I closed my door. I cannot hear the ringtone of my house phone. I was never fated to hear the house phone. I was never fated to know that this was all going down. And I am never a superstitious person. I'm not like an extremely religious person. And something that happened that night was that I suddenly woke up at 5 a.m. or 5 plus a.m. to absolutely nothing, like absolutely nothing. I've never woken up at like in the middle of the night before. Never. For the past maybe 5-6 years. I always sleep very peacefully all the way until I have to wake up at like 6 or 7 or 9 or 10. So it was very weird waking up in the middle of the night. I checked the clock. It was like 5 plus, and I went back to sleep. I didn't think anything happened. I didn't like check my phone or what. I went back to sleep. About an hour plus later, my parents came into my room and they woke me up and said, "Oh, your grandmother just died." My parents will go to the hospital to like settle the body and transfer it to the funeral location. And at that age, at 17 years old, I could digest it. I could digest it and understand what just happened. I could understand that I just lost my loved one. And they left for the hospital. I closed my door. I sat on my chair right next to the window and I just cried. I cried like a lot because I didn't think that she would go now. I didn't really expect it. I expected that she would go soon. We never ever get like an actual date that you will do someone. You never get an actual date. You will only get a rough period of time. And she was already strong. She lasted like more than what the doctors say that she had left. And I was just very sad. I was just very, very sad. So fast forward to a few days later after the funeral. So I got the death certificate after a few days after the funeral, and I looked at the time of death. Remember when I said what time I wake up? The time of death was 0509, 5:09 a.m. And you see, I'm usually not a superstitious person, but I had such a weird feeling that is this coincidence, or did she wake me up to say goodbye to me? The thing is that if I had like heard a call from my parents, if they had called the house phone and say you need to come down now, I would have been able to say goodbye to her. But they decided that you should go the next morning, because the doctors did say that she had maybe about a day left. So they were like, you have to quickly go lah. And actually it was just like a few hours. And the most saddening part about this is I think she waited for me. I think she waited for my brother and I, because all our grandsons, granddaughters already saw her, and my family was the only person who didn't call their children to go and see her. So I felt like she waited. She waited for another 1 hour. She waited for another 1 hour, and she realized that we're not coming. And so she couldn't hold on to it anymore and passed away. And it's just, I can talk about it quite okay now because I've already internalized everything and I've already felt all the emotions. But I think that it's a lesson for me to really appreciate the people around me, because I really don't know when they're going to die. And even if I knew they were going to die, there's a chance that I'll probably still have regrets of not telling them something, of not doing something. So would I want to know when I'm going to die beforehand, or die suddenly without warning? My answer to that is I want to know beforehand. I went to a whole different route, but I just wanted to share my story, take this chance to share with other people. Hope that you will cherish your loved ones as well, because you won't know when they're gonna go. And you should definitely not take your time with them for granted. So, on a very heavy note, that is the end of the House Life podcast. I hope that you have enjoyed it, and I hope that you have learned something from it. So, I'll see you in the next episode of the House Life podcast next week. Goodbye.